Alright, hello everyone, Xiphias here. I'm going to do something I don't usually do, and that's just record me talking a little bit, but I've been thinking a lot about one thing today, and I really wanted to get it out there. So, here we go. I was thinking about how we are perhaps changing the Firebat in Starbow from being this beefy unit, which costs a little bit and takes a lot of space, to being more like the Brood War Firebat, where it's more light, it's more, it doesn't cost as much, but it still deals a lot of damage. And I was actually looking at the damage it does in Brood War, and I was surprised to see that the splash zones it has in Brood War are slightly bigger than the ones we have in Starbow, and the ones we have in Starbow are, at the moment, fairly big. And this thought led me to some other thoughts, and this is going to be the core of what I'm going to talk about today. And this has really nothing to do with Starbow. This is actually almost more to do with StarCraft 2, or just in general RTS games, or especially RTS games that are similar to the StarCraft genre. And that is the paradox of the short battles. Let's call it the paradox of the short battles, or short army clashes, or whatever. In StarCraft 2, Blizzard has even shared the concern that battles tend to last too quickly. Battles tend to start, and then lasers happen, and then the battle is over. This is probably particularly more true versus Protoss than any other race, but it's still true for all matchups, really. And I saw in Legacy of the Void that they tried to decrease all DPS with 10% to make battles last longer. I don't know if that's in current Legacy of the Void beta, or if that's just something they tested, but it didn't really seem to make too much of a difference. But I don't really know the results of that test. But just the fact that they did that test means that this is something they're concerned about. Now, here's something that okay, not always, but something I thought was very interesting. It's really is a paradox, because in Brood War, battles did tend to last a lot longer than they do in StarCraft 2. That is a fact, and there are many reasons for that. But I don't think the main reason is because units deal less damage in Brood War. Now, in Brood War, you have the armor types and the armor reduction attack types, which is normal damage, explosive damage, concussive damage. And it scales down. You have a base value, like for siege tanks, it's 70 in siege mode, but that's explosive damage, which means they only do 75% of 70, which is 52.5 or something, versus medium units, and only half damage, 35, versus light units, and they only do the full 70 damage versus armored units. So the damage scales down, but also a lot of the times the base damage is higher because it scales down, unless you have normal damage, which is just the flat damage all around, like Marines have 6 damage no matter what. But here's the thing, so damage on many units might be slightly lower because of the scaling down system, but damage on splash units, on special units in Brood War, are brutal, incredibly brutal compared to StarCraft 2. Reavers do 100 normal damage splash with no upgrades, 100 damage. Psystorm is 112 damage, huge splash with a huge area, and it's just enormous amount of damage. And still, battles last longer in Brood War, which is a very interesting thing to think about. So where am I going with this? I think I know why. And it seems to be that many units in Brood War, just to name a few: Firebat, High Templar, Reaver, Siege Tank, Lurker, just to name a few, yeah, the Defiler even, they had the potential to deal an enormous amount of damage, but they were incredibly fragile. Picking off a High Templar is super easy, unless Protoss is really good at protecting it, right? And Reavers too are not that hard to pick up. You need a shuttle to go with it just to, control it. If you have a naked Reaver sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, it's just super easy to kill. Same with the Firebat, actually. But if you put a Firebat in a choke with 2 medics in front of it, you can kill an infinite amount of Zerglings. So I think the reason battles didn't last, a battle lasted longer in Brood War, is because they didn't really happen. If Zerg would take all their Zerglings and Hydralisks and send them into the Protoss army, just kablammy, straight in there. that battle would be over very quickly, because the Slice Storm would just rip them to pieces. Zerg couldn't do that in Brood War. What Zerg had to do is they had to take smaller squads and bait out a lot of Storm, or take some Mutalisks and snipe the High Templars, and then the battle can happen. But when all the High Templars are dead, or most of the High Templars are dead, of course the battle is going to last longer, and all the build-up to the battle feels like a part of the battle, so the whole battle feels a lot longer, because you can't just straight up engage. Battles in Brood War tended to be avoiding the other person's army, because the defender's advantage was so strong. These very slow, very high damage units were so strong that you wanted to stay away from them. You wanted to attack somewhere else. You wanted to split up your opponent's army. You wanted to do all other things except for engaging his army directly. And it was always asymmetrical in the matchups. It all depended on the matchups and stuff, and I'm not going to get into the technical details of that. And I think that's just an incredibly interesting thought. I really am starting to embrace the idea of these like units that has really good damage, and splash damage in particular, should also be very vulnerable. And I'm just loving that idea because of the implications that we're talking about right now. Like I was saying again with the Firebats and Starbow, just when I was thinking about getting a weaker Firebat with more damage output, it's like, it just makes so much sense. And it also applies to other Starbow stuff, and I'm not going to get into Starbow specifics right now. So that's about it, really. I think if Blizzard wants StarCraft 2 to have longer battles, this is going to sound silly, but I actually think they need to make some units do more damage and be more fragile. Like, I think the main problem here is that they just added a lot of generic units, like the Marauder. It has decent HP, it has decent damage, it's fairly quick. It's just like blah. It's just like it has a average of everything, is average HP, average speed, and average damage. And when every unit feels like that, when you have very little splash damage, especially vulnerable splash damage, and even the splash damage you have is not that strong. Like the Colossus splash damage, I know Colossuses are strong, but Colossus are strong because they can take a lot of damage before they die. Their attack itself is not that strong. Imagine Colossus being like a third of its HP, but doing like 3 times more damage. Like, you never want to engage. You want to snipe. I know you already want to snipe Colossus with Vikings, but that would be, the sniping part would be much more important. I feel a lot of the times in StarCraft 2 right now, maybe not right now, I haven't paid attention to StarCraft 2 for a little bit, but at least when I was paying attention to it for like maybe 6 months ago, it always felt like you were just calculating to see if you could beat your opponent. Like, okay, I have this generic group of units here, and you have your generic group of units. Now, if I just have X amount more supply than you have, and I actually get a decent concave and a decent surround or whatnot, I'm just going to win. Straight up, I'm going to win. I don't really need a micro, I'm just going to win. And you can never do that in Brood War. Because even if you had like half the army you have, if he had really strong, like if he had a good lurker position, or if he had a lot of High Templars or something, you just couldn't engage. You had to do other things. You had to think on your feet. You had to. So yeah, that's just my little rant here. I think this among with some other things, but I think this might be a very important reason that battles tend to last shorter in StarCraft 2 compared to Brood War. I'm Xiphias, by the way. I never introduced myself. I'm currently developing Starbow, so thanks for listening. Take care.